Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Free to Grow CFO podcast, where we dive deep into conversations about scaling a profitable D2C brand. I'm your host, John Blair, founder of Free to Grow CFO. We are the go-to outsourced finance and accounting firm for 8 and 9-figure D2C brands. All right, today I've got my homie Chris Lang again for the third time on the show. Chris, I think you're the first three-peat, man. What's happening?
And I feel like I had my flu game today, bro. This is like my 10th call of the day. I'm like Gordon, just like pushing through. No, dude, three-peat feels good. Feels good.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat, man. I think we've chatted a bunch of stuff. We've chatted
Yeah,
fresh chili.
right.
We've chatted the kind of like 5 Fs and kind of
Yes.
more like life coaching side of Move Forward. But today we're going to talk about something that I definitely see you playing in constantly with your content game. But
Yes.
we're going to talk about content, organic social storytelling, whatever people want to call it. But the reason why I brought you on to talk about this, one, you're living it, you're breathing it every single day, and you're putting out some great content yourself. But I want brand founders listening to hear about this other side
Right.
of building a D2C brand. It's not all just Facebook ads, Google ads, right? Direct response marketing. There's a brand building side of things, organic social, content creation, storytelling, all a part of that. And over time, there's this invisible linkage between the two, between ad buying and direct response marketing and that content. And I couldn't think of anyone better than you to come on and chop it up on that. So before we dive in, can you give the audience a quick background on who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I'm a creative entrepreneur. Fresh Chili's in the top 1% of Shopify brands. Bootstrapped, no investors, tons of line of credit and loans though, for being honest. I've been in the DTC game for about 10 years now. It's taken me that long to really wrap my head around blended ROAS and content. Like, how do they all speak to one another? So yeah.
So before we get into like I want to get into the weeds on some of your advice on how to build organic content. But before we do, what have you seen at a high level over your years of doing ad buying and creating content? What do you see about how those two combine forces to really drive a brand's growth forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two big takeaways, it's going to make you more efficient on your ad spend, when you're doing it right, right? I mean, I think every high level media buyer is saying their job is so much easier when the brand has organic strategy down.
For sure.
That's
Yep.
like, oh, organic strategy is going to make me look like a rock star, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally.
every media buyer loves that. And then like number two, like it's about depending on the business model. If you're looking at LTV, AOV, all the things, right? Like it's about building a community that you can build your business upon long term. And so I think it's those two foundational aspects that I see that are kind of the biggest takeaways.
Yeah, man. We've built Free to Grow on the back of, referrals and content. And obviously this podcast is a part of our content. There's no lie about it. But what is the reason why we do it? Yeah, we want to drive leads. We want to grow our business.
Right.
But I love being helpful. And I love seeing the community that gets built around our content. I've got existing clients who say they listen to the podcast. I have prospects who come in that I've known for a year that heard a podcast episode and said, today's the day I start working with Free to Grow.
Mm-hmm.
Another podcast I'm on, Ecom Scaling Show. We just recently started doing monthly live ecom scaling shows to further the community building, to invite people in to watch the show live and ask questions. And I think in a world of AI content creation, right, being on the rise, building genuine organic content and telling your story as a pillar of that, not the only pillar, but a core pillar, is going to differentiate genuine brand building from like AI driven content. Do you agree? And what do you have to say about that?
I agree. And I think that's really where my framework was really developed is, there was a part before the agency kind of got restarted where I had like 10 different businesses and I had to create like this social framework to tell the story repeatedly, every day. And then there's been a few shifts with that, one, stories and reels are more important than ever. Like I think the worst thing I've seen, clients or brand agency or brand owners obsess over is the grid, the aesthetic. And it's like, no, your people are on stories, your people are on reels, right? And so like you gotta spend more time strategizing, what that content looks like. And that's where if you're a Shopify brand owner, this is the best way I can explain it. go to your PDP, your product page, and what's on your product page? How do you convert that customer? It's images, it's reviews, it's how to use, it's price point, it's your shipping terms, your return. And that's what we do. We systematically, I call it our shop operating system, is what I call it internally, but it's a Figma board. And this Figma board is very systematic, where, yes, we have the post of the day or carousel post of the day, but we're also building out stories. And those stories are very systematic to the products that are on a Shopify store and also that are relevant to educate very high level top of funnel the customer. Because that's the thing, like they see an ad, you're spending all this money on Meta, but then you're not optimizing like the conversion. And the other thing is like people obsess over their websites, but they don't obsess over social. But you're spending money on social and then obsessing over you're like losing a
Yeah,
step in between, right? And so
totally.
that shop operating system that I've really kind of developed, and it's very visual. And the reason why brand owners really like it is because they can really see, okay, Monday, February 2nd or whatever it is. Here's my post of the day. Here's my stories of the day. Here's my email. Here's what ads we're launching. And that's the way that I sort of had to bring it all together visually for people. And it just really started to click for them like, oh, there's a whole strategy behind this. And yeah, I was like, we're trying to complement the email. We're trying to complement the ad strategy. Now, ads, if you're a brand that's throwing 1,000 ads in a ad account, that's another level. But again, they're all variation. I guarantee those ads that are in your ad account are variations of what we just talked about. How do you convert people on your PDP is sort of the strategy that we take on. I would say it's our first step on social is where we like to start. You can do in-person events, activations, collaborations, whitelisting, it goes on. But the first step is to build a foundation through, kind of top line education.
That's fascinating. My brain was firing off in all directions as you were talking. Like first, just using the every piece of information on your PDP as kind of like a roadmap of like, we need content that goes deeper on each one of these, right? And I like to think about content, and it doesn't matter what kind of business you run. I run a service business, but obviously this applies to an e-com consumer goods business. You want content to nurture prospects on its own. A prospect can choose to dive deeper and go down a rabbit hole and learn all the things for themselves, right? If you just rely on a top of funnel Facebook ad that drives someone to a site and then maybe some Google ads retargeting, right? You're basically relying on converting a lot of your sales through these really 15 to 20-second like scans of pages, right? And some products can sell that quickly, right? There are some impulse buy products where that can happen, right? But there's only some people who are ready to buy today. Like there's this book I read, I forget the name of it. It's called The One-Page Marketing Plan by a guy named Alan Dibb. I read a number of years ago and it really changed my perspective on marketing. This totally applies to an e-com brand. There's harvesters and there's hunters, right? The hunter, the hunter analogy for advertising is you put out a Facebook ad, someone clicks on it, they go right to the landing page and bam, they buy, right? There's a small percentage of people who are going to be ready to for you to, pull out your marketing gun and shoot them and bag the kill, right? And what's great about a hunter is it gets you sales today. It gets you fed today. But what's bad about a hunter is every day you have to find a new piece of game to kill, right? Or you have to find a new customer who's ready to buy today. So what does a harvester do? A harvester sows seeds, right? Fertilizes them,
Right.
waters them over many, many months.
Right.
Then patches of that land that's been cultivated you start to be able to harvest it one patch at a time. And so what this book talks about is you got to think about two layers in marketing. You're going to have some people you're going to hunt where you're going to bag the kill today, but you also need to be tilling the fields and you need to be harvesting one section at a time. And you need both of those layers of sales. And so I think about content as being the harvester. You're the harvester, right? And so you may be nurturing someone on your content for 2 or 3 months, and then they see an ad the second time, and
Right.
that's the day they click and they buy, right? But
Right.
you've been nurturing them all along with their content. So anyways, I'm curious
hmm
if someone wants to get started today, what is the biggest trap that you would warn them of? Something you see all the time.
Yeah, that's a great question. Just because it is like a few different answers, but one answer is like not really having a strategy. I think with like people are afraid to test, maybe is what I'm trying to say. People are not they're afraid to, like they're almost paralyzed to put something out there, whether it's a reel or whether it's a story because it may feel spammy, but people's thumbs are just doing that quick. I mean, like,
Yeah,
what
yeah, for sure.
what are you thinking about? Like, what are you obsessing about? Like, and I think that's, like, maybe that
Mm.
is the number one thing that I just see is, like, just people are, like, so I'm a brand guy. Trust me, I'm a brand guy. But my biggest viral video was an ugly burrito thumbnail. Like, did not want appetizing at all. Did not want to eat that sucker myself, but it went viral to sold a lot of salsa. So doesn't I think like you just I know and I know the term like Barry uses like ugly ads and I think that's a good analogy of some sort, but it's like you just at least gotta start talking to your community, and I think that's what it is, right? Like, people wanna be prepared. It's like going to a networking event. You don't maybe know everyone in the room and, but I just find it fascinating that, brand owners are willing to spend so much money in hunters as a hunter and not really as a harvester, and I think that that's a great analogy. And so I would say, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and because the community is gonna tell you, it's either gonna be engaging or not engaging.
Yeah.
And, that's kinda your stats you can look at every month, so I think that's kinda the first thing.
Yeah, man, a hunter will feed you for today, but then
Mhm.
they have to go out and hunt again. A harvester, a farmer will feed you all year long,
Yeah.
right?
You're
But
returning
what's the problem? It's delayed gratification, right? Ad buying, getting a hit off of a Facebook ad or a Google ad, there's this adrenaline rush, there's this dopamine hit. It's called direct response marketing, right? But the more that I work with ecom brands at Free to Grow and even just build my own business, the more that I realize that actually funnels, the analogy of a funnel actually destroys the perception of the value of organic because a funnel assumes that you drop someone right down into that bucket and they buy, right?
Right, right,
Whereas like I'm starting to realize with a content strategy, you have to think about an ecosystem. It's more like a web,
right,
right? And there's all these connecting points across different pieces of content and across different ads, across emails. And really people kind of like your prospects are actually traversing up and down and across
right,
that web, and then at some point they're convinced and then they go down the funnel and they buy. Do you
right.
do you agree?
Man, I mean, I'm gonna date myself here, but I think one of the best analogies I could say is like purchasing a car. Like you're gonna see like the dealership ads on your feed. You're gonna maybe hear about the dealership on the radio. You're gonna see this kind of cookie TV
Yeah,
commercial
yeah.
up to YouTube. And that's the thing. You go on the website, you look at it. You go on the manufacturer's website and look at it. And that's the thing, like, it took me 6 months to buy my last car, and again, it was just a myriad of touch points. I thought and it's funny, I ended up with what I actually started off with, but I just kinda went down this rabbit hole of looking at, all these other, types of vehicles, and so, I think what's really interesting is you do have to have that approach, and again, people like to research. I think people have been s I think I don't know the stats on it, but everyone's been scammed on e-com at some point, right?
For sure, yeah.
And I think that's kinda like what you kinda have to do. You have to build trust at every touch point.
So what I think I might be able to infer the answer to this question
Yeah,
from a few things you just said, but I know with my own content strategy, what got me started was just like, I don't care if this is good or not. There
right,
was a lot of, in terms of like engagement metrics, in terms of the
right,
data, the first year or two of me building my own personal brand, I would have guessed that it wasn't going well
right,
from the data I was being fed from these platforms. But anecdotally, I knew it was going well because prospects I talked to, current clients, they were telling me they were listening to the podcast, keep it up on LinkedIn. And I'm like, really? That post got like 300 impressions, right? And so I think I've come to learn that you just do it and you do it for the love of it, right? And that's what keeps you going, and it will bear fruit in terms of building your business at the same time. But what's your opinion on consistency and quantity versus quality?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, if I'm being honest. So, there's this graph I just posted, and I benchmark us versus Heinz, French's, Tostitos, Off, Tabasco, and everyone had a net negative follower growth, and we were the only brand that had a positive follower growth, and by a large margin, and our engagement is higher than all those companies put together, and we've distributed over 500 pieces of content in the last 28 days. So, but there's a strategy behind it going back to that, right? Like I'm trying to educate our consumers on every type of sauce we have. So we have over like we have 60 different sauces to be clear. So 28 days, I don't even go through all my sauces. I try to feature a sauce every day. And just to get people, like you said, I'm just, in 90 days, they're all gonna kind of see that at least maybe we have a cocktail sauce or Dijon mustard. But but it comes down to the strategy. I think in today's world, you do have to have that high level output. Going back to that, benchmarking against some of the biggest brands in the world who are not generating as much content. But if I guess, what's interesting is, people want to engage. They will either like, am I showing up for this? Or because I kind of do the same thing. And I think you do the same thing. Like you might go on an Instagram or X account. They haven't really posted in 6 months. I'm gonna
Yeah, you're
unfollow.
like, is this company dead or is this creator dead? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and so you might unsubscribe or unfollow. So I think it's a part of that. And so, it's good to have both if you can do both. And I think the framework is, and this is what I tell people because I don't know what the average Shopify store, like how many SKUs they have. Let's just say it's 10. You can really stretch that content out over 30 days pretty easy. When you think of all the touch points that you obsess over on your product page, just really turning that into posts and stories and reels, that's gonna give you 30 days of content.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that's actually one of the next questions that I was going to ask you, which is like, do you have any other advice for if a brand feels like they've exhausted
Yeah.
their PDP and their SKUs? What do they do next? And this is what I'm really getting. I'm really getting at this thing. I hear a lot of content creators say, I don't want to post the same thing because I just posted that 3 months ago. My
Yeah.
opinion is, yeah, well, 3 months ago, a bunch of the people who were following me weren't following me. And all the people who are following me who haven't bought forgot what I said 90 days ago. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, it just reminds me of the story of like Henry Ford. His desk was right past the advertiser's desk, and this advertiser was working on like this new campaign for the car. And every day Henry Ford just kind of looks down at it, just kind of like thinks to himself, walks to his office. One day he stops. He's like, "Can we change that up?" He was like, "I'm tired of looking at it." He's like, "We haven't even released this car yet, sir." So I
Yeah,
think
yeah, exactly.
I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, we're not." And I think that's just like we get in our own way of right of building community, telling our story. The reality of it is, and I love this example of like Larry the Cable Guy. Like Larry the Cable Guy, you kind of know him as Mater from Cars, from Pixar and everything. But that guy was that guy for 20, 30 years before Cars, right? And just he just showed up every day and he was just Larry the Cable Guy. And, it turned to something that's probably beyond his wildest dreams. But I really what I find success in, and not just in like Shopify, but also creators and actors and musicians, is the people who are willing to put in the work, day after day and be like, this is who I am. This is who I am. And so those are the people that really win at life. And, I mean, if you just actually, take a step back, you have that realization. So it is one of those things where it may feel, but that's where like with us, we do change up the, styles every 30 days. The color schemes or images. We do constant creative. So we're constantly doing new photo shoots, new video shoots. So, but again, the messaging is still the same. It's
Yeah.
has chili, and so that's what people come to us for. And so, when I work with other brands, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I mean, I just got off a call earlier, they just were worried about spamming, and it's like, no, like and I think once people lay it out visually, so, like, what's cool is Canva or Figma or Illustrator, whatever you like to work in, they all have a whiteboard where you can just kinda throw everything and just take a look at it and see how everything flows and looks out, and I think it'll start to make more sense to people. And this is something I've sort of I don't wanna say I've been gatekeeping, but this is something that we've just been having success with internally, and I just haven't really been, sharing it too much because it was something that I wanted to make sure that it worked, that our clients were seeing positive growth like we were talking about. They weren't seeing negative. I mean, the results are in. I mean, the brands who are posting more consistently, they're the ones who are winning right now.
Interesting. Yeah, man. One thing that I wanted to dive into off of that is storytelling, because we talked about PDP, we talked about SKUs, but the next layer or the next pillar, in my opinion, to a great content strategy is storytelling. Where can a brand start? What are kind of the bullet points, your framework for like, where do we start telling our story in what areas?
Yes. So you definitely want to do it, around the hero product. And it comes down to that value system. It is one of those things where I just really define like 30 different values that we have to be cognizant from a strategy standpoint of like selling that product. But the top 5 are already there. I mean, like we talked about earlier, what is the social proof? How do you use the product? What's the money back guarantee if there is any? What are the shipping? And it's really kind of answering those basic questions around it. That's where you just want to show up every day. And that's where like UGC whitelisting is just, it's really kind of king right now. I think that's really going to be the big alpha, for this year is the brands who are building more social proof. And I'm going to dovetail for a minute because Meta sort of ran out of ad inventory, when it comes to like your brand account. So how can it get more ad inventory is that if you actually start whitelisting social proof and start pigging back off, influencers and getting more ad inventory. So it's a really
Interesting.
fun,
Yeah,
interesting
totally.
dynamic right now for Meta and for Shopify growth companies.
Man, if there's one thing that like brands can invest in 2026 and beyond to provide a tailwind for their ad buying strategy, I think it's this content strategy you've been laying out, man. I mean, I would say financially speaking, like let's talk about the finances of it for a second. Like brands do need to think about what is the impact of these efforts going to have on my blended marketing efficiency, right? Because the costs of building out a content strategy need to be considered in your overall advertising budget. But like just like testing anything else, brands are great at like carving out a piece of their budget to test new ad creative, right? So I think personally as a CFO in the D2C space to think about starting an organic strategy and paying for the resources to do so in the same way. Take some amount of your budget, clear it with your CFO, your finance guy. Hey, can
Right.
I spend X a month on creating content for our organic content strategy? Correct me if I'm wrong. You should be able to dovetail that into your ad creative as well. So you can kind of kill two birds with one stone, right? You can create advertising creative, but I would say sometimes, and actually, this is a good question. I think where I see some brands go wrong is if they're only creating content from an ad creative standpoint, it may not be created in a way that packaging it for organic social,
Yeah.
the output doesn't make sense. But if you start with organic content at the beginning and think
Yeah.
about how you can dovetail that into
Mm.
ad creative, you can kind of combine efforts. And I think that helps the cost efficiency. Do you agree?
Yeah, so I'm smiling because kind of 2 points there. Let me answer the first part of your question, right? I mean, it's either gonna be a 3,000, 6,000, or 9,000 month investment, right? That's the way I kinda look at it, right? Like either you're hiring some like a good VA overseas to maybe kinda handle some of this content and, 6,000 maybe you're layering on, organic content and influencer kind of management, right? And then maybe 9,000 and above, you're like custom content, custom photo shoots, custom video shoots. So just to get that price point out of the way, that's a good way to look at it. The other thing too on that, why I was smiling, and I'll just say it because Johnny, it just tweets about this constantly with screenshots. He's just like, it's a lot of organic content that we started doing for the brand Perfect White Tea, which is a national, apparel brand. And basically that's kind of it. That's what I'm talking about. It's like what's cool is when we create 30 days of content, and we do this 45 days out, we're actually creating over 500 pieces of content that we're going to schedule and publish throughout the month, right? And what's cool is all of that content, all those 500 pieces of content can be used in your ad account.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing.
But you got to have the strategy from the beginning,
Yeah,
right? Like you can get lucky and be able to use them in both places, but if
right,
you have that as a part of your strategy from the beginning,
right.
it really changes things. I mean, look, I'll share this right here. Like fully candid for everyone listening, our content strategy at Free to Grow CFO, it hinges, the cornerstone content is our 2 podcasts. We
Yeah.
pour our heart out into recording those, planning them,
Mhm.
editing them, packaging them, and then we parlay that into all of the content that goes out in short form, daily
Mhm.
LinkedIn posts, daily YouTube shorts. And then we also use it to create blogs and weekly emails that go out. But we didn't stumble upon that. That was our plan from the beginning, right?
Right.
We're like, and so what I want brand founders to hear is like, if you're worried about the cost, right, of layering in organic content on top of your existing kind of ad strategy, rethink it and say, how can we create content which consumes probably a budget you already have for creative, right? And build it out so that it serves both an organic content strategy and the creative that you need for your ads. And then you're going to get a whole lot more, I think, bang for your buck out of creating that content. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. Unfortunately, we could talk about this forever, but unfortunately, we're going to have to come to a close in a few. But I'm curious, what is your take on the biggest opportunity, like emerging channel for publishing organic content?
I mean, right now, YouTube Shorts. I'll be quite honest. This is a channel because I haven't spent as much money on it, right? I've done Google AdWords and Meta and some TikTok, but it's like YouTube Shorts is really where a lot of the organic growth is happening. This is actually where I'm pushing a lot of our client content. For the last year, started a weekly cooking show with Fresh Chili and organically, and just kind of getting setting that as a foundation. So I'm about a year into it as well. I met with Isaac from Mini Cantana. We had dinner in West Hollywood last month talking about like YouTube, so I would say Isaac is a great guy to talk to about YouTube growth strategy right now. I think what's interesting is I didn't realize this, but I actually went to a Google YouTube meetup with like Ezra Firestone and Brett and Jacques and from Raindrop. And the most interesting aspect is if you take YouTube from a consumer standpoint and you list Disney, Hulu, Peacock, everything else, all of those combined don't even equal YouTube's monthly viewership.
Well, wow.
It That's just, like, phenomenal. I was just like so I feel like that was like a gut punch to me. I was like, I really felt like I was missing the boat on that. Meta's still king, obviously. But what's really cool is like you're already creating content for Instagram and maybe even TikTok. Just start putting it on YouTube as well. And then, you get to a point where you need to really look at your strategy for growth. But what's great is just start repurposing your content across platforms for now.
Totally. Man, this has been everything I was hoping this conversation would be, man. And I appreciate you coming on. What are your final thoughts for a brand founder who's listening right now? What's a single final thought piece of advice you can give for someone who's just interested in getting started?
If you're interested in getting started, just start. Start taking some practical advice. Take your product page, go into Canva, very easy. Select the 9x16 social media, select the 4x5 social media templates, and just start building out your PDP, but in social assets, and just start publishing them. I think one, that's going to give you clarity over your brand. Two, it's going to make you really think, how you present your brand and the offers. But I would say just to really start converting. And again, this is just foundational. I'm not talking about growth, like crazy growth strategies, but just from a foundation standpoint, start telling your website story through your social media channels.
Man, I love that. I love that. Well, this has been fantastic, man. Before we land the plane, where can people connect with you or find information about you?
At Chrisling Social across all the platforms. Yeah, that's the best
Yeah,
way.
definitely follow Chris's content. It's fantastic. Are you speaking at anything
Yeah.
anytime soon?
I'll be in Miami next week for the DTC Grow Summit. I'll be with Ezra, and I'll be at Expo West in Anaheim.
Are you coming to Commerce Roundtable in Austin in
Commerce
April?
Roundtable. Yeah, I'm gonna be
Bam,
there.
I'll see you there, man. That's in my town, so I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Same, man.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on as always, and I look forward to our next chat, man.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good one, brother.
Bye.
Don't forget, if you liked today's episode, please hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening and leave us a review. It helps us reach more people like you. Also, if you want more tips on scaling a profitable D2C brand, follow me, John Blair, on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in learning more about how Free to Grow CFO can help your brand increase profit and cash flow as you scale, check us out at freetogrowcfo.com.